In my last video, I recorded myself playing music in the middle of a field. It was really fun, and I've been getting a lot of questions about the gear I used and how I did it. So this video attempts to answer those questions for those interested in packing up their gear and getting out into nature. Depending on how much equipment you have, these two things will vary pretty greatly. For me, my ideal, uncompromised setup includes a synth, drum machine, looper, sampler, and vocal effect. This gives me the fullest sound. So I cut a piece of plywood out roughly 15 by 52 inches. Then I configured the entire setup on the piece of wood and figured out where the wires would approximately be and drilled holes so the wires could go underneath. I got a cheap keyboard stand lying around and then screwed two 2x4s in it so that it could stay in place and is sturdy. Now, how to carry it. I used some wire I had hanging around and drilled smaller holes into it where the legs were. Put the wire through and then poof, you have a stand and table connected. Then I grabbed some ratchet straps I had lying around and strapped them to the stand. Poof, now it's carryable. This really depends on how much equipment you're trying to power, but I bought this heft of a battery off of Amazon.
Try it yourself.
Best massages.
It was a bit expensive, but it seems to be the most powerful and also checked off all the boxes. A front readout of how much wattage is being used. How many hours of battery you have left based on the current usage. An overheating indicator. 3-pronged AC out of 100 watts. 3 USB outs. While this battery is great, there are a few drawbacks. 1, it's heavy. Added weight for carrying. 2, it's large, so it takes up space on the table. So what I did was slap some Velcro to the top of it and then placed my sampler on top of that. Fits really well. I used a standard extension cable and plug all my equipment in. It reads that I have 5 hours of use when powering my sampler, looper, recorder, drum machine, and synth. This is way longer than I'll ever need, and it makes me very happy. I recorded the session with the H6, a portable handheld recorder that works really well in makeshift situations like this. It has an internal battery that lasts quite some time, and you can power it by USB, i.e. plug it into that monster battery I mentioned before. Depending on what you're trying to do, you could also record into your phone if you have a record-in jack, or use another handheld recorder. A laptop is also possible with an interface. You just need some way to have all the signals converge if you're using more than one piece of equipment, so a mixer might be essential. But remember, the more stuff you have, the more weight on you. If you're recording a video, then you might need to bring a tripod. This also adds weight, and for me, it was the heaviest thing I had. A smaller tripod, like a GorillaPod, can wrap around a tree, or a GoPro with a clip stand can attach to your table. I use this as well as a harness on my chest to capture video. Some people don't like this crazy movement, so keep that in mind when recording.
3, 2, 1, start.
Make sure before you start recording that you have some way of syncing up your video and audio. A clap at the beginning works well, and if your audio recorder is not recording ambient sound, press a key or note on your instrument at the same time you make a noise so you can link up the camera and audio recording sounds.
Clip in 3, 2, 1, clip.
What do you want to do to hear your music? There are two options here, headphones or speaker. Headphones give you a great monitor of the sound. There are two types of headphones you could use. You could do closed back headphones, which would block the outside noise, giving you a better sense of how your recording actually sounds. On the other hand, you could do open back headphones. You'll be able to hear the sound around you, but you might not pick up on the nuances of your own sound depending on how loud or windy it is. You could also bring a Bluetooth speaker with an aux input. Now, keep in mind, with a speaker you'll draw more attention to yourself. But if that's what you're going for, cool. If not, then be aware that speakers might bother others. To carry my wires, H6, sampler, battery, camera, tripod, and headphones, I use a backpack. Carefully packing them in there and using a tote bag to carry the cables so I can easily pull them out all at once. For my synth, I use this old Moog case that I had from a previous synth that I sold. I put another tote bag in there and put my mini Logue on top of the drum brute. Finally, I put my looper in the front pouch. Once you get it all packed up, you must try it on. This is where your athletic skill and body type come into play, based on how much gear you're trying to bring into the woods and how far into the woods you want to go. Remember, water and snacks are also a must if you're going to be out there for a long time. So having pockets or another bag you can latch onto your gear is a must. There was one comment that came up that should be addressed. I thought about doing this, but worried that, alone, with all my pricey equipment, I might get mugged. Slashy frown face. I'm not really sure how to say that. Sideways frown? Little frown? Any words of wisdom? This is a serious concern. Some people spend many years saving and getting just the perfect setup. It would be a real shame if during an outing someone stole your stuff or you dropped an expensive piece of equipment into a pond. If you live in an area where you feel trepidation to go to an isolated spot, then maybe go to a more public place to start where muggers will be less likely to bother you, like a park that's heavily traveled. For me, the places I go are pretty isolated and fortunately have a pretty low crime rate. So just keep that in mind. There's no real easy way to answer this, so for each person, the threshold of risk to reward will be different. Just know that doing this is not 100% without risk. Make a checklist. You don't want to get out there and finally be ready to go and realize you are missing your power cable. This is why I suggest setting everything up in its entirety before you go out. Wear everything before you go out to make sure you can carry it. Your equipment might seem light to you at first, but try walking a half mile in the woods with your equipment and then setting it up. And then by the time you're ready to play, you might feel completely exhausted. So just keep this in mind. Go to the place before you bring your equipment to make sure the ground is level enough and not wet so you can comfortably play. Take wind into consideration. Buying some kind of anchor that you can use to hold your stand in the ground is also really important. Bright cables are useful and easier to find. Going during the golden hour of photography is also really nice. This way you get the best natural lighting. Dress in layers, bring snacks. Really hope you enjoyed this video and can use some of these tips to get out there and jam under the sun. Feel free to leave any questions you might have in the comment section below. I'm also interested to hear about how you record portably, or any suggestions for places to play and ways to increase safety when doing it. Until next time, you've been blessed.